We say political education because political education is the key to raising political consciousness. And without political consciousness, there can be no revolutionary action. Kwame Ture says that without revolutionary consciousness, there can be no revolutionary action. We want to say that our organization, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, has been involved in the struggle to build a Pan-African organization capable of liberating the masses of our people who are scattered and suffering in 113 countries around the world. We are humbled by this great feat. We know the leaders who have preceded us have given us the correct path on which to travel. We are aware that this struggle is lifelong. We must say that we have come to understand in the time that we have struggled to build this party that our job is not complete. We still need to keep building our party. Many people ask us, why do we run that same slogan? Build the party, build the party, build the AAPRP. Is because building the party is a lifelong process. We will never end building the party. We would like to say, for those of you who are in an organization, maintain, stay in the forefront of your organization. Build that organization. For those of you who are not in an organization, we welcome you to join our organization. We have a table right in the back of the room where our brothers, our sisters are standing to welcome you, to give you information about membership in our party. Those of you who may be interested, at the end of this program, we invite you to come to the rear and sign up to join our party. Our party is a serious party. Our party is not a sunshine organization. We struggle, rain or shine. We struggle through all the turmoil, all the turbulence that the years have brought us. Yet we maintain, we're determined that our objective of Pan-Africanism will be achieved in our lifetime. Of this there can be no doubt. We know the rapid pace of struggle in Africa today only leads the way. We'd like to say to you that our organization has a political education process called work study. All members who come to our party must take part in the work study or ideological training process within the party. This ideological training process convenes every other week, where members who decide to join our party come to study a political education guideline that is designed to raise their political consciousness to the level that they may make a contribution to the masses of our people. We began this political education process with a process that we call orientation. For those of you who are interested in joining the party at the end of this program, please sign up for our orientation. There will be an orientation meeting held within the next 2 weeks. Notice will go out to all of those who sign up tonight as to the exact location, date, and time of this orientation. Again, we say that we have come here for the purpose of political education. We know we will achieve that objective here tonight. Bottom line, we need you. We need you to join our party. If you are not going to join our party, and you don't belong to another party, you must join some organization struggling for our people. There is no way that any of us individually can make a dent in the problems that face our people. We may think that we are helping, but without organization, we are hopeless. We must join an organization. We must build organizations. I say again, Come, organize the party. Organize the party. Organize the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. We're ready for revolutions.
I've noticed that we have really moved along the evolutionary scale in terms of African greeting, and now we're greeting each other in the Kemetic language, Hotep. I'd like to greet you with that, but I'd also like to take you back 20 years when we greeted everybody with Black Power, power to the people and death to the pigs. Let's see your fists up in the air for Black Power. All right, ready for the revolution. It is with great pleasure that I come to you to present, to be able to introduce Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture follows me into America this time at the heels of me and my sisters who had the opportunity to run with him, literally, over all over Guinea. Well, he says it's not all over. He only showed us a little part of it. But I watched his schedule today, and that is the kind of schedule Kwame has maintained for the last 20, 25 years. An intense schedule as a revolutionary. I'd like to quote two people tonight, invoking the names of our ancestors. The first being Frantz Fanon, who says, each generation has its mission. They either fulfill it or betray it. Frederick Douglass says, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet renounce controversy are people who want crops without plowing the ground. You have to admit controversy, struggle, progress. Fulfilling one's mission has definitely been the objective and the life of Kwame Ture. These are words and terms that are synonymous with him. From the days of our youth when we yelled for Black Power, Kwame Ture was our loudest voice, our most militant voice, our most vigilant voice. He did not join the Democratic Party. He took heat everywhere in every part of the media for being who he was. Black Power, the call for Black Power, reverberated around the world, and African revolutionaries picked that call up and ran forward with the banner from Soweto to Harlem. Kwame Ture sought to fulfill the mission of his generation. He was a revolutionary as young as 15 years old at the Bronx High School as an honors student, visited Howard University, and decided that's where he wanted to go because the students there were intensely involved in the struggle. At Howard, he went to study to be a medical student. There, he found out that he couldn't be a bourgeois revolutionary medical student, so he decided to go to philosophy, the area that teaches one to think and to really look and decipher the world. At Howard, he became a civil rights activist in SNCC. His early youth in SNCC put him in the forefront of the civil rights movement as a very young man, fighting for public accommodations, fighting for freedom in schools, fighting for voter registration, fighting along the roads in Mississippi and the freedom rides and the sit-in movements, in the forefront of that movement. Those of us who are here approaching 50 or there remember coming home every night and seeing that movement played out on the television. Every night, fighting in the forefront against the draft. Kwame Ture was also in Mississippi along with Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, organizing the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Also, he was honorary chairman of the Black Panther Party. Currently, he is the one of the organizers for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. He is in the forefront and organizer of the Anti-Zionist Front, which we must study and become closely familiar with. And I say to you that Kwame Ture is fulfilling his mission. It is your responsibility to fulfill yours. I bring you Kwame Ture.
We thank you. We want to thank all of you for a beautiful program. Young people who were drumming for us came clearly to affirm the statement that you can take an African out of Africa, but you will never take Africa out of these Africans. The hospital today has been most kind. We wish to thank Brother Mark, of course, Mama Kamara, Brother Shaka, and the others who have spoken and have to leave. We want to stick to our topic this evening, but we want to come around the back door, if you will, to get at the topic. The Chinese say, "Be not warned by the speaker, but the words that he speaketh." This is most important. I recall an incident, one standing on a block in Ohio with a man, just discussing that you can learn something from everybody, because in my life I learn something from everybody I come into contact with. And while discussing this with a man, a drunken man was coming down the street, and there were sirens going all around. He said, "You are saying you can learn something from every man?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Look at this man. He's the biggest drunk in our community. He never has anything worthwhile to say." The drunk came right up to him and said, "Your house is on fire." The Chinese say, "Be not warned by the speaker, but the words that he speaketh." The Africans say, "Listen even to the enemy, out of his mouth too can come the truth, even if as a result of a double lie." We want to look at one of our enemies tonight before we come properly to our discussion. Of course, the enemies of our people are the enemies of all humanity, those systems which oppress people, those systems which seek to reap off of the exploitation of people criminal profits. Thus, imperialism, capitalism, colonialism, neocolonialism, and of course, Zionism. I wish to start with Zionism. Of course, here there must be some discussion. The job of an enemy is to confuse you. That's the job of the enemy. And Zionism everywhere confuses people in the first instance, letting them think that Zionism, a political system which found its organizational expressions in 1897, is somehow linked and tied to Judaism, a religion which was given to the world by Africans. We say clear distinctions must be made here. The Zionists will try to make it appear as if their system, which is an illegal system, a political system, is divine and even given by God himself. All religions have running through them a theme of suffering before one is redeemed. All religions. In Christianity, it reaches such heights that Jesus Christ, peace be upon his name, climbs the cross to shed his blood to redeem others. Most of these religions, however, seem to give an atmosphere of individual suffering for individual redemption. Judaism, however, speaks of collecting suffering in order to redeem the world. Thus, if one were to understand some of the theological aspects of Judaism, one would understand that when they speak of God's chosen, no one is confused here. It is not that God chose you, it is you have chosen God. When you become God's chosen, because you've chosen God. Since God has created all of us, it's for all of us to choose. Just like since our people are oppressed, it's for all of us to choose whether we help them or be against them. It's as simple as that. It is simply a choice here. Of course, when you choose to serve God, it means that you choose to suffer. In the Bible, we have the clear example of Job, who screams, "Though you may slay me, yet will I serve thee." This is Judaism at its best. That means the Jews have collectively accepted the suffering that will be heaped upon them by the rest of the world to redeem the world. Of course, as a religion, it can only reach its objective through divine intervention. This point must be properly understood. If indeed the Jews are to return to Israel, only God can take them there, nobody else. This point, we say, must be properly understood first. Because in the world, no matter how oppressed a man or woman is, they know they're equal to every other man and every other woman. Oh, even dogs know they're equal to each other. Thus, anytime you try to play God before any other man, he will cut you down with a bullet, or his children will throw stones at you, but you will never be respected as a God. Zionism is thus the enemy of all of humanity. It comes to take a religion, to twist the religion, and to use the religion for unjust ends. There's nothing new here. Some people are so confused that they think because slavery tried to use Christianity, that indeed a slave master can be a Christian. A slave master can never be a Christian. And a slave who accepts a slave master can never be a Christian. A Zionist can never be a Jew, and a Jew who accepts Zionist philosophy can never be a Jew. Our points must be clear here. Zionism, we say, is the enemy of all of humanity, thus standing on the just axiom of Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, imposes upon us the responsibility to struggle against Zionism. Zionism is our direct enemy. People were saying some time ago that the All-African People's Revolutionary Party is always against Zionism because they get money from the Arabs. We tell everybody, if the Arabs stop fighting Zionism, we never will, because it is our direct enemy. Those who make this illusion work for the enemy. They seek to confuse people, to let people think that we have so much struggle going on, why must we go and help somebody else? Such stupidity. Justice is indivisible in the very first instance. The Vietnamese defeating American imperialism helped me. It weakened American imperialism, thus I can get it better. Justice, we know, is indivisible. Zionism is our direct enemy. Even those of us who are conscious of Africa know how this slimy system deals with us. It has connections everywhere with the racist in Azania, South Africa. They produce diamonds to the world, and none of those diamonds are to be found in Palestine. All of them come from Azania, South Africa, where we build them out with our blood, our sweat, they're in our land, and we get nothing for it. They get everything for it. Zionism is our direct enemy. They invade Uganda with just do what they want in Uganda. They make war in Egypt. They shoot down Libyan civilian planes. They invade Tunisia. They treat us with utter contempt in Africa. Some people who do not understand that they have a link to Africa or Africans seem to think that Zionism is not their problem. I bring you to America here. The illegal Zionist state of Israel receives more money in foreign aid than all of Africa put together. And Africans have done more for America than all the Zionists in the world put together. Thus, just in the very first instance, the money used to kill Palestinians, the money used to invade Africa, the money used to sabotage Africa, that money at least should be used here to take care of the Africans who are suffering here. So just generally, it's seeking to their enemy. But they have nothing but contempt for us, these pigs. They control the Zion, they control the Democratic Party, there's no question here. They control the Republican Party, there's no question here. George Bush, Reagan, Clinton, they can all act as bad as they want to act, but when the Zionists say jump, they say how high. Thus, you must know if they control the Democratic Party and they control Clinton, they control every African inside the Democratic Party. The only African that ever spoke out against them was Gus Savage. Spoke out against them. And when they couldn't defeat him, these pigs gerrymandered his district on him. You don't know them. I know them because I'm on the front lines fighting for them, fighting against them all the time. They control completely the Democratic Party. And they decide which Africans will go up in there. And the only Africans who go up in there is the one who bows down before Israel unconditionally. They have nothing but contempt for us. Tonight I can speak here. I can condemn Clinton. I can call him any name I want to call him. No white man anywhere in the country will call up any other African and say, you know, Kwame Ture spoke out against Clinton. Do something about that. Attack him. But the minute I mention Israel, I promise you, they will call up this one and that one and every other one and tell them, you know, he spoke against this, condemn him. They come to interfere directly in our internal affairs. Who brought the split between Farrakhan and Jackson when we need unity? It's the Zionist pigs that did it. It's the Zionist pigs. Any statement you make in this community that they don't like, they bring you in task before your own people. They interfere into the internal affairs of our nation. They do this everywhere. For us, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party is on campus. Who do we have to fight? The Zionists. They have the nerve to go to an African Student Association and tell them, you should invite him here. Yes. Our party, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, has been, since its inception, 1967, working on organizing an African United Front in this country, throughout the world, but in America also. The intention is simple. All we want to do is bring together every African organization representing the people, put us in the same room, discussing face-to-face what our problems is, and coming out with a common program, irrespective of how minimal it is. This task was accomplished here in Washington, D.C. in 1968 by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee under the leadership of Brother Baba Zulu, then known as Lester McKinney. Baba Zulu, bringing together the SNCC force, came to organize inside of Washington, D.C. a united front that shocked everybody. Anybody today who's done anything in Washington, D.C. came out of that united front. Calvin Rowlatt was a member of it. Marion Barry was a member of it. Walter Fauntleroy was a member of it. There's nobody you can mention here who was doing anything in the 60s. Of course, many pop up today who did nothing then. But anyone who was doing something then that was not in united front. It was a powerful instrument here. It brought all of us together, and when we faced the enemy together. We understood the power of it. We signed it quickly among the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to spread the idea. In between that time, I left the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I was working then for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, but we continued with our task. In 1972, when Miss Roy Wilkins was alive. In 1972, when Vernon Jordan was with the Urban League. In 1972, with Minister Louis Farrakhan representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In 1972, with Ms. Dorothy Hyde of the National Convention of Negro Women. With all of these leaders, we had worked out everything. The meeting was set in place properly for New York. Within 48 hours, the entire meeting was sabotaged. Once again, Zionism did it. Our party is a determined party. We are strugglers. We don't run from struggle, we run to struggle. Matter of fact, you make the water rough, we get rougher. We are fighting for the people. Nothing will stop us, and we know the more you struggle, the stronger you get. So when we throw something out there, they stop it, we come stronger. They stop it, we come stronger. And we keep coming stronger. Like Sterling Brown says, strong men just keeps on a coming, can't nothing stop that. By 1982, after 10 years of serious struggle, after the demise of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and when Minister Louis Farrakhan had rebuilt the Nation of Islam, our party sent me on a mission there. I went to him. I gave him all the files from the United Front. I told him, our party's incapable of building this front. We are too isolated from the right wing in this country at this time, the right wing inside the African community. We have little time for them. We can only say hello, but no time to work with them. You occupy a central position here. This is your task. I took to him a paper from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Muhammad Speaks. If you look at any of those papers, you open to the centerfold, there was always an advertisement of hands joining each other, calling for the building of a united front. I said, this is the program of the Nation of Islam. You must do it. Minister Louis Farrakhan accepted this task. We spent the whole day together outlining the program step by step. How to bring in Jesse Jackson, how to bring in this one, what problems they will have, how best to do it. During that time, when I left for Africa, Jesse Jackson announced that he would run for President of the United States. I remember the conversation we had then with Reverend Minister Louis Farrakhan. Mr. Farrakhan is older than I am, though he looks younger than I am. Don't let him fool you. That's an old man out there. That's a slick old man. You know, he's not to play with. He's serious now. He came to me, he told me that, you know, Reverend Jesse Jackson run for president. I said, yeah, I heard it. He said, you know, he's been getting a lot of threats. I said, yeah, I heard that. He said, you know, might get killed. I, at that time, incorrectly thinking, assumed that, you know, some crazy cracker gonna pop him. So, Minister Lewis, I really thought that. Of course, later I saw I was incorrect because I knew at that time when I reflected, America couldn't let them touch Jesse. Because if they touched Jesse, them Africans were leaving voting in the Democratic Party forever. So they had to protect Jesse. But I was incorrect. I thought, like the minister did, that perhaps he would be killed. The minister said, I want to put the FOI at his discretion. What do you think about this? I said, well, that's your decision. He saw that I wasn't enthused. He said, I said I want to put the FOI at the disposition of Jesse Jackson. He's being threatened. Nobody's doing anything. I said, I heard you, sir. He said, well, if you were in my position, wouldn't you do that? I said, no, sir. He said, well, if you were in Jesse Jackson's position, wouldn't you want the FOI to protect you? I reminded him. I said, Minister Louis Farrakhan, when I was elected chairperson of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in 1966, the first public meeting I had in this country was with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me at the end of that meeting, I was a young man. He looked me square in the eye, he said, son, he said, the devil wants you. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, the devil gonna kill you. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, you've got to be very careful. I said, yes, sir, we've been very careful all our lives, but could you be vigilant? He said, sir, I'm worried about you, son. I said, thank you, sir. He said, son, I'm going to give an order to the FBI. Wherever you go, they'll protect you. I thanked him. I was most humble, really. But I understood that I move all the time. I had so many problems. So in my humility, I thanked him very much. And really, I told him, please, sir, I understand, but you have a lot to do. The FOI is so busy and so much. I appreciate this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked me straight in the eye and said, son, I wasn't asking you. I was telling you. And anybody who knows me, anywhere I go, if we tell the Nation of Islam, they come and they offer protection. And I know anywhere I'm speaking, anybody try to get me, if an FOI member is there, he'll take the bullet from me. I know this. I know this. So I told Minister Louis Farrakhan, he said, well, what do you think about Jesse? I said, I love for the FOI to protect me, but I promise you, as Africa is my mother, I will never demand the FOI to protect me because I want to be president of the country, maybe because I want to tear up the country, but not because I want to be president of the country. Of course, I'm a revolutionary. Sentiment plays no role in my task here. Minister Louis Farrakhan is a minister, thus sentimentality does play a role. I'm a revolutionary. In revolution, there is no sentiment at all. This is a scientific process. If you work on sentiment, you make errors, and errors in this job can be fatal. Fatal. Thus, Minister Farrakhan went along with the procession. I did tell him, however, I said, Minister Farrakhan, you know the Democratic Party is controlled by them Zionist pigs. He said, I know that. I said, they know what the other people may not know. But while SNCC certainly made a public position against Zionism, the Nation of Islam is the first African organization in this country to take a position against Zionism. Not only take it, but to give political education on it. I remember when I was a young man in this country, the only paper I could read about news about the Palestinian Liberation Organization and struggle was in Muhammad Speaks. That's right. These are facts. I reminded him, I told him, I hope that when the split comes, Jesse will be on the same side of the barracks with you. That you will not find yourself on other sides, him shooting bullets at you with the Zionists. I informed him that he has a special task now, since he's working with Jesse, pull quickly the African United Front. I knew what happened when I heard the news, and I told him the Zionists not going to let it happen. I knew the Zionists split it. As soon as they had the nonsense there about what statement he made and all this nonsense by something that has nothing to do with our struggle, Jesse on one side, he on the other, the party going crazy. All we're working for has been finished 20 years. 20 years of work is never finished when you're working for people. Once history is made, whether recorded or not, it makes its indelible mark upon the conscious movement of the people's forward march. We came to the United States, and as soon as I came here, the first thing I did was to call Minister Louis Farrakhan. And it's a Farrakhan. I said, yeah, sir. I said, listen, we still got United Front. He said, no, we ain't got it. I said, yeah, we still have it. He said, no. I said, we got to talk about it. He said, we can't talk on the phone. I picked up a plane and ran quick to Chicago. I met him at the door. He had a file for me. When I came in, he gave me a file. Johnny Jackson, Johnny Jacobs of the Urban League, whom I took him to meet and introduced to him. And they both wrote a letter together asking for United Front. Had written an article attacking him. He was upset. It took me 9 months before I could get them back together to shake hands in Washington, D.C. 9 months of consistent work thrown up by these Zionist pigs. I know them for the enemies they are. We've redressed our tactics. Since it's difficult to get this United Front because of these Zionist pigs, let's take them on head on. We're strugglers here. We organized the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. It has in it 30 organizations worldwide, and every one of them participate and believe in armed struggle as a means to liquidate the enemy. Our party is extremely honored to be chairperson of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. We have organizations from all over the world. We are the most revolutionary Pan-Africanist formation in the world today. Inside of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front in America stands the Republic of New Africa. Its chairperson, Obaderi, you know, just got out of jail. He spent long years in jail for a firefight they had in Mississippi with the FBI, where 2 FBI agents were killed. We don't play in our organization. Inside of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front stands the gallant Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, South Africa. You must not be confused. You would really think the press makes revolution. If you would look at this country, you would think that by the press in this country that Jesse Jackson is the most popular African. But you bring Jesse Jackson with all his press, ask him to call a meeting in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Chicago, anywhere, and you have Farrakhan come without the press, and Farrakhan will fill the place every time. But if you're not careful, you will think it's Jesse Jackson. If you're not careful, you will think that Nelson Mandela is the only freedom fighter in Azania, South Africa, and the African National Congress the only organization. There are many other organizations fighting. The mighty Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, which joined as a founding member of the African Anti-Zionist Front. They have an army. They have not laid down the arms before the white racist pigs. They continue to rain blows on them because they know de Klerk is not an honest man. He is a fascist pig. We have members in Ghana of the June 4th member as members of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. We have groups in England, members of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. We have groups in the Caribbean, members of the Worldwide African Anti-Zionist Front. And we promise Zionism that if we have to get a united front through fighting them we will. Into their blood we will wage. But one thing is clear, we will have an African United Front. We say we wanted to come with the discussion through the back door. Look in this country. You will find Jewish children born in this country who, confused by Zionism for whatever reason, attracted to it, can easily distinguish themselves. These Jews in America, confused by Zionism, live better than we do in every aspect. They don't even know what the police looks like. We come into contact with the police from birth till death. Many a times death at their hands. We know the police, we know racism, we know bad housing, we know these Jews don't know that. They live good in America. They're better off than we are, economically, politically, socially, in every arena. Yet you get one of them who's 24 years old, 22 years old, 21 years old, 18 years old, and you ask them, which is more important to you, America or Israel? Without blinking an eye, they will tell you, Israel. Africans in this country suffer everywhere. Matter of fact, the time we stepped off of Africa, we caught hell. Today, we're still catching hell. Ask them, which is more important to you, Africa or America? Africa, what's that? What's that got to do with me? We say we take a page from the enemy. We look directly at the enemy. If some young man in America who has everything to gain in America can think of leaving America and going to Palestine, occupying somebody else's land and fighting for them to run them off the land, to take the land in the name of God, why is it that we are not running to Azania, South Africa to run the racist pig out of there and take our land? This is how the question must be posed. There's no question of whether or not we should be building America. Africa is the only place we should be concerned with. If all that America gives them, they can think about Israel. America gives us hell, and we're still thinking about America. Here, we seriously need political education. Here, there's absolute and serious confusion. The confusion here is that we think like the enemy. And when you want to defeat an enemy, you cannot think like the enemy. You have to think diametrically opposed from the enemy. Malcolm X says, whatever the enemy is for, you must be against. Whatever the enemy is against, you must be for. When I hear America fighting, I heard some years ago that George Bush was talking about going to Baghdad. I immediately sent a letter to Saddam Hussein, whom I had the pleasure of working with when he was vice president, when we put together the first worldwide anti-Zionist conference in 1974 in Baghdad. I sent him a message quickly and told him, we're on your side. We're on your side. Some man talked about being rational. You're not being rational. I'm rational, Jack. I'm as rational as you get. If I'm the imam of Mecca and American imperialism is fighting the devil, I'm on the side of the devil. I'm not confused. Because the question of discussing Somalia is only for those who have no understanding. Somalia? You mean you can't feed me in Washington, D.C.? You're going to go 10,000 miles to feed me? Give me a break, Jack. American imperialism knows only its own interest. Right. And its interest is to confuse the people it oppresses, to make them think that the oppressor and the oppressed have the same interest. It is because of this that we're confused about Africa. If we understood that we should not have the same interest as American imperialism, then we will know automatically that Africa is our home. We say when you come to fight an enemy, you must think diametrically opposed from the enemy. Otherwise, you will think just like the enemy and end up in the enemy's camp and not even know how you got there. Let me give you just a slight example. The American capitalist philosophy teaches about individualism. They're speaking nonsense everywhere. This is nonsense. Everyone knows that no human being can develop individually outside of human society. Matter of fact, a human being isolated from the human species is more stupid than any other animal isolated from its species. The biological example we give is correct. You can take a dog, a puppy the minute it's born, without its eyes open. You can take a kitten the minute it's born without its eyes open. You can take a child the minute it's born without its eyes open, put them to grow up with monkeys. The puppy will grow up to be a dog, walk on all 4 feet, bark, love bones. The kitten will grow up to be a cat, walk on all 4 feet, meow, love mice. The child, eat monkey food, walk like a monkey, talk like a monkey, and try to make a contribution to monkey culture. It is clear that the only way a human being can reach their fullest potential is among other human beings. Because anytime you stop thinking about the collective and start thinking about you and thinking that you're so Superman that you can advance the race, you've already lost the race. I see it all the time. In America, we don't understand what the confusion is. No African in this country make any individual advancement without the struggles of the masses of their people. None. None. Not even basketball players. These punks who make all this money, they think they make it because they play basketball. They make it because their people sweat and bled for them. And the society, in order to confuse us, made them basketball players, put them in college. So at least you say you got somebody going through college, give them a lot of money because they don't know what to do with it. In fact, insulting our dignity every day on the basketball court. Can you imagine that money becomes more important than the dignity of your people who shed blood to put you where you are? Anytime you think like an individual, you think like the enemy, and you end up in the enemy's camp without even knowing how you got there. When we think collectively, we can only think of Africa. When we think collectively, we can only think of Africa. We say you must know your own culture. It is from your culture you fight, and the enemy tries to make it appear as if we have the same culture. Even white leftists who've been confused try to tell us that in America we all got the same culture. What do you mean we all got the same culture? If you fight an enemy, it's from your culture you fight the enemy. What they've been trying to do is to tell us we have no culture, and some believe them. Thus you're lost. This culture is going to defeat American imperialism, this African revolutionary culture. If one doesn't fight for one's culture, one makes great mistakes. That's why we can't even see Africa. We give one example. Women all over the world are oppressed. Women all over the world are oppressed. Countries which are conscious of this oppression have women organizations, because organization is the weapon of the oppressed. Organization is the weapon of the oppressed. If you look at Cuba, you'll find a women's organization. If you look in Tanzania, you'll find a women's organization. If you look in Zimbabwe, you will find a women's organization. Wherever people are conscious of the fact that women must fight, they have organization, and from here they fight. We say all women are oppressed everywhere. In the African community, women are oppressed on every level, from the physical to the ideological. Some of our brothers are so stupid and imbued with capitalism that they actually abuse the producers of our nation. Everywhere women are oppressed. Everywhere. Everywhere. But unless African women look properly at their culture, they'll make great errors. They'll make great mistakes. Africa, even under feudalism, produced the first queens for the world. The very first queens. And these queens were not play queens. Dr. Henry Clark in his pamphlet documents for us that when a queen was on the throne in Africa, it advanced technologically, scientifically, politically, economically, and in every other way. When an enemy invaded and the queen was on the throne, there was no compromise. African women today are oppressed by their men. We want to make that clear, crystal clear. But in women, African women must know that women's oppression is not endemic to African society, nor to its culture. It may appear so for others, but not for Africans, once you know your history and your culture. African men can oppress their women everywhere, but the one place we cannot oppress them is on the front lines fighting for us. We say that if you don't know your history, you'll be confused, and the job of the enemy is to confuse you. I hear so many times people who tell me, in the 1960s, women played no role in the movement. You are reading books not written by those who were in the movement. You are reading books written by capitalists who wipe women out of the movement. That's your problem. But if you're looking at your people's movement, you could never make that statement at all. We were put on our feet in the 1950s by a woman, Rosa Parks. Who could not see that? If women played no role in the movement, why can a woman put us on our feet? If you look at Africa, we say, our women are warriors. Africa has produced warriors out of their women. I'm not just talking about Nzinga, who fought the Portuguese for 40 years at the head. I speak today even about Sata Shaku. Oh, look here. How many of you know here too? How many of you know Sata Shaku? Raise your hands. Oh, why? Why? Okay, she has a book called Asada. You must read it. I can't tell you too much about it because of our time. But she's a sister who was with the Black Panther Party when it took to her what appeared to be its irreversible reactionary path. She and many others left and formed the Black Liberation Army. The Black Liberation Army was hunted by the FBI. She was one of the 10 most wanted lists for years. And she was living in New York dealing against these pigs, giving orders to brothers, and brothers used to tell you, she gave me an order. They were proud to get orders from her. When she was arrested in New Jersey and the FBI jumped and to help us, it's used to confuse us. Stupidity, 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 nothing but stupidity. The only way we will control all this is when we come to have a land base. Africa must be our primary concern in every aspect. We say our entire history is Africa. Our entire destiny is linked up to Africa. You know, if you read these history books about the movement in the 60s, none of them mention Africa. But I will tell you, Africa was the key role in making America change her laws as rapidly as she did. I give you examples. When I was a student at Howard University in the 1960s, all around Washington, D.C. was segregated. I remember some of the worst humiliating experiences of my life when as a student at Howard University going to Atlanta, Georgia for a meeting in SNCC to make some demonstration. I would have to sit at the back of the bus. And since Washington, D.C., Virginia was segregated, as soon as they got on a 14th Street bridge, you'd have to get to the back of the bus because you went to Virginia. And I'd never forget, inevitably, all the time, even though we were already in the back of the bus, because all of us knew we had to go there, some little army reject who was a bus driver that with one hand you could snatch in the neck, put him and throw him out the window, will stop the bus and get up and announce to us in the most vulgar terms that we had to get to the back of the bus. Yes. We understand precisely all of these experiences. We lived them. We watched them carefully. We would see how we'd have to go and struggle just to break these things down. We would look and see that for every reform movement, our people here must shed blood. And they call America their home. Malcolm X said, revolution is bloody. It knows no compromise. It destroys and overturns everything in its path. Yet we as a people shed blood just for reform. To sit on the bus, we have to shed blood. Do you know that's the only way we change that? Yeah. Just sitting on a bus, you got to shed blood. To get UDC, you got to shed blood. To get the vote, you've got to shed blood. Once the people do not have their culture, they become confused because their culture is necessary. The enemy wants to wipe it out. Every mayor in this country who is mayor because the people shed their blood. He cannot act like any other corrupt mayor. The others didn't shed their blood to get the vote. We did. Therefore, the vote must mean something different to us than it does to the other. This is your culture. You must think differently from the enemy. Africa is your home. Africa is your only home. In order for us to make our proper contribution to Africa, we must become organized. In order to make our proper contribution to Africa, we must become organized. Of course, we are confused as a people between unity of action and unity of thought. We have unity of action, we lack unity of thought. Our unity of action is great. It can be found in great moments of mobilization, but unity of action is up and down. Unity of thought is always thus directing action and sustaining it. In 1965 in Watts, we rebelled. Tore up the country, shocked America, shocked ourselves. Did we do that? In 1992, we rebel again. No qualitative difference, just quantitative. It's greater, we're more angry, our head rate is rising, but there's no organization to properly direct the struggle. People get confused with mobilization and organization. The confusion is even helped by the enemy because Dr. King himself was a great mobilizer, but very short in organizing. Malcolm X was a mobilizer and an organizer. When Dr. King went to a town, he had one object: break down the segregated signs and move on. He would do that and move on. There'd be no organization there. But when Malcolm X was sent to a town, he had to build a mosque. 2 or 3 is what he started with. And keep building and building. Malcolm X is a super bad brother. A lot of people say they like him, but they talk garbage, because as long as I've known Malcolm X, I've never known him to be outside of an organization. When he left the Nation of Islam, before you blinked an eye, he had already created 2 organizations, the Muslim Mosque Incorporated and the Organization for African Unity. I'm bad. I'm real bad. I know that. I'm super bad. But all my conscious life, I've never been outside of an organization, and I never will be. Because as bad as I am, I know I can do a lot of things by myself, but the one thing I cannot do by myself is struggle. And since struggle is the only way my people make progress, I am forced to struggle with an organization. It means that everything that I have must be made subordinate to organization. I have to work in organizations with people I don't like. I have to work with them. I have to work with organizations when I myself am tired. I must work with them. I have to look at the errors made inside the organization and accept them. Because I know without organization, there is no chance for my people at all. We say we get confused with mobilization, unity of action. What certainly represented great unity of action, so did Los Angeles. Who can deny this? I'm a revolutionary. Making revolts has been my life's job. As a young man in SNCC, we used to make revolts with the cover of nonviolence. We brought them to Atlanta, Georgia. We made one in Houston, Texas, in Nashville, Tennessee, in Cambridge, Maryland, right here in Washington, D.C. when Dr. King died. We organized the revolt. We led it. They knew it, but they couldn't prove it. That's my job. But to ask me to make a revolt in Los Angeles, California, I could never do that, even though I'd want to do it. But these Africans, they hear a decision which near though is unjust, and without the slightest planning, without the slightest discussion, with no meeting at all, they take to the streets and take on American capitalism, head on. If people got great unity of action, they lack unity of thought. This unity of action is great. You can see the mobilization. But people get confused. They think because we're all against the same thing, we're all for the same thing. This is an error. This is a great error. The nationalist struggle in Africa for independence is instructive here. All Africans wanted colonialism out of Africa. All Africans. But not all of them wanted them out for the same reason. Mobutu wanted the white man out so he could take his place and continue exploiting Africans and become the richest man in the world. Lumumba wanted colonialism destroyed so he can destroy it and bring a just system for all Africans. Just because everybody's against the same thing doesn't mean that everybody's for the same thing. This is the error we make as a people. I'm telling you, we say it all the time, even at this university, as jive as the students are, let some racial incident happen, everybody gets hot. I mean everybody, even Uncle Tom. Yeah. And I promise you, for 3 or 4 days, they'll be hot. They scare everybody. And then after that, they sit down. Just sit down, just like we rise up in Watts in 1965, sit down, only to rise up against in 1992. I get to sit down until maybe 2010. We must have unity of thought. You only get it from organization. It's because we have no unity of thought that we have such irresponsible thought in our community. All the problems that you have in the community is because we do not respect ourselves. Do not fool yourself. All the problems we have in our community is because we do not respect ourselves. Do not fool yourselves. And the only way we can respect ourselves is when we respect Africa. The only way we can respect ourselves is when we respect Africa. Brothers and sisters, politically, brothers and sisters, socially, brothers and sisters, ideologically, brothers and sisters, culturally, brothers and sisters, in the terms of destiny, our destiny is linked with Africa. Until Africa becomes strong, we will never be strong. We end by giving you the example we were going to give you about Howard University when we were segregated here. At that time, Route 40, which runs along Maryland, was segregated. African countries began to have independence. They sent ambassadors to the United Nations and ambassadors to the embassies here in Washington, D.C. They used to drive along the highways, and when they would stop in Route 40 in these restaurants, they would be refused admission. They complained to the United Nations. The State Department itself went to every one of these segregated restaurants on Route 40, every one of them, and gave them orders. If you see them coming in here in big bad Cadillacs, and you see them dressed up with funny clothes, don't say nothing. Serve them. Because you're messing up the country outside. Because the Soviet Union is pumping that up to the Africans. You say America's democratic, your representative got thrown out of a restaurant for trying to get a hamburger. Dig that democracy. They were burning them up. They had to come quickly and change it. I remember this row. We'll never forget this. I had a student at Howard when we found this out. We, a group of us, went and borrowed some clothes from our brothers in Africa, rented a limousine, and went to one of these restaurants on Route 40. We picked the biggest one. Got out, went, sat down, ordered in a funny English, and anytime they came around us, we say, "Ooh-goo-goo-goo-goo." Ate as we wanted to eat. When we got ready to pay the money, went out into the door and said, "Thank you all a lot, this show was good." I knew the power of Africa. They try to hide it from you. As Africa becomes strong, we get strong. We cannot build in America. We must seek to destroy the American capitalist system and build a socialist Africa. We thank you. Ready for the revolution.
Oh, yes, I'd like to thank you very much for the very powerful speech.
But let me just ask, let's ask those who are leaving that they can leave quietly and quickly, and don't forget in the back of our table is the All African Peace Revolution Party. Let me say something now. We've been trying to organize our party in D.C. for years. Nobody joins, but you're not going to tire us. We're going to tire you. We're going to keep coming until you join some group of your people.
Yes, I was wondering what your thoughts or opinions are on the ideological movement known as Afrocentricity, spearheaded by Malifi Hassani at Temple.
It's very difficult for me to speak on that because you know I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I can speak on Pan-Africanism, whereas Pan-Africanism has a question to do with land, it has a question to do with socialism, and as we say that when you speak of revolution, you must include the program of land. So for us, our position is clear as Pan-Africanists. Africa is our land. The economic system we want is a socialist economic system. So the others, we don't know exactly precisely what land they're advocating or what economic system, but we know that, to be precise, these are at least two prerequisites for revolutionary. The question of land as a basis of independence, and the economic system which will be set up, either capitalist or socialist.
Yes, I want to address I was at a conference a couple of days ago given by the Rainbow Coalition. They talked about entrepreneurship, minority entrepreneurship owning franchises. And being that I was a former athlete myself, I looked deeper into the problem, and I saw that the only way we can begin to even think about entrepreneur franchising is that we got to understand who we are. Exactly. And our athletes, we have to groom our athletes to, my feeling is that we have to erase the word education and replace it with entrepreneurship. First of all, the other thing, because education just means you get educated enough, you go work for the slave master. So we erase that with entrepreneurship, and use entrepreneurship, we then become self-reliant, self-efficient, and we start to own industry, produce, and manufacture. My personal point of view is that the conference the Rainbow Coalition gave was basically a waste of time, because many of our athletes, we still marry white people, we still have white agents, or everybody that as soon as we get money, people that represent us is not us. So how are they going to tell us to go into the community? That's another thing that I wanted to address. The other thing is that the billion-dollar industry that sports brings, the universities will always be powerful as long as we continue to send our kids there. This is a capitalist society. We must think money. And our children is the answer for us, because we cannot continue to allow our children to play and perform for free anymore. That's over. That's the only way we're going to build any foundation, any basis.
All right, well, I just want to tell you now, all your programming you say is correct, but there must be something that must precede it. And it must be political education. I'll tell you why. We have a great inferiority complex imposed upon us. If you set up a business downtown, a white man sets up a business next to you, it's the same business, 90% of us will go to the white man. So until we first understand that we have to support ourselves and wipe out this inferiority complex, the economic basis won't really hold.
I definitely agree with you on that. I definitely agree.
I can't pronounce your full name. But
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Can you say Gorbachev?
Gorbachev.
So all you got to say is Kwame Ture.
Ture.
Take that. It even sounds musical.
Kwame Ture, I've seen you on videos, and I'm going to make this short. I'm 22 years old, and I feel that your inspiration is Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all the other great leaders. My question is this. I already told you my age, and I'm trying to get an organization now within our communities that's a little bit different from this one, that works with kids that are deprived, that's homeless, and kids that are hungry. The problem that I see in our community, like you said, the capitalist system, we are more consumers than we are producers. We go out there and we buy stuff just like youngins. We think that it's all about Nike or Jordans, where Michael Jordan don't care nothing about us. And we got all these people that's making all this money, don't really care nothing about us, but yet we can go out there and be disunified. I want to ask you this. Do you feel like in this century to come that you're going to have young people like yourself to start rising up and stop being scared of this American capitalist system and start rising up against the system? Because a lot of people I see are scared. A lot of people I see are Uncle Toms that don't want to do anything, even among our young people. And they worry more about materialism than about spiritualism. Do you think that people like myself, because I'm not afraid, and I told some other people, I'm going to be quiet, that if it takes me down for the sake, I'm tired of seeing our young people getting killed by our own people. A baby the other day got killed, a 1-year-old baby. And they stuck a gun in a little girl's mouth and blew her brains out, but we can walk around and act like it don't make a difference. Do you feel in yourself that we're going to have some young people that's going to rise up and not be scared?
I don't know when, I cannot tell the time, but I can promise you, as Africa is my mother, victory is ours. And I can tell you, the quicker we get up and organize, the quicker the victory will be ours.
Greetings, Brother Kwame Ture. How are you? Recently, well, just a couple of days ago, I returned from Germany for a conference on Sendero Luminoso,
The Shining Path.
Shining Path, concerning Dr. Alamar Guzman. I also read a letter that you sent in support of the struggle in Peru. Would you please comment, if you can, why you wrote that letter supporting Shining Path, and if there's a connection in the struggle in Peru to the struggle for Africans in Africa and Africans in this country, and that's it. That's fine.
The Shining Path movement is a movement that fights in Peru. The movement is made up of a lot of indigenous people, just its makeup alone. And the movement fights seriously against capitalist Peru. The leader of the Shining Path is a man known as Chairman Guzman. He was captured a few months ago. The Peru State Police is trained by the CIA and the FBI. It is certain that they're the ones who are involved in his capture. Of course, we are revolutionaries, and any time somebody's against the capitalist system, whether we agree with them or not, we support them. So since the brother is in the clutches of the enemy, it is clear that all of us fighting the same enemy must come to support him. Therefore, it's a great honor for us to be able to come to support him. We had a lot of trouble with others. A certain group in this country came to issue support for him, but while supporting him, they were criticizing what he was doing. And we had nothing to do with that. And they said, well, you know, he made mistakes. We told him, listen, we heard this. When the Honorable Marcus Garvey was being attacked from the right by the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, the white left in this country was attacking him from the left. So when a man is facing the enemy, you don't attack him even if you have differences with him. So let the man get out from the enemy, then we can discuss the difference we have. So we give unconditional support at this point to the Shining Path. We want him out of jail. And even if they got to break him out and take him out of jail, we support their move.
The other thing I was thinking is, when I was in Germany, I learned that women dominate the struggle. The peasant women are the ones that are leading the struggle.
Yes, and they are indigenous women. Yes, they must share. Of course, you know, most people don't even know what the Shining Path is. And they may think because it's not on CNN.
Yeah, I write for a local black newspaper, and I've written about it about 5 times. But it's a small paper. But
don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Attorney, good to see you.
News Dimensions, yes.
Oh, y'all don't know Attorney Cox? I thought everybody knew, huh?
Good evening, brother. I'm really honored to be here and to hear your message. I had 2 questions. It's kind of packed into 2. One is about the Americanization of Bobby Rush and this current trend that we see toward, I call it a whitening and lightening of the revolutionary activities that were going on in the 60s and 70s. It's like a reinterpretation of history through movies, through video, which our generation and our children are so much more accustomed to, and it's reinterpreting the history and teaching it to people who don't have a historical reference for what was going on. And I just wanted to get your comment on that. Should I go on with my second question? Okay. My second concern, you say we need to go back to Africa, and I do believe that is our African brothers and sisters, our counterparts, particularly now. You mentioned Mobutu. I mean, the list could go on, but I know personally that a lot of our African brothers and sisters are being educated in this system as if this is the only way. And it seems like there's a lot of work, not only with organizing ourselves, but organizing on the continent in order that this movement can be cohesive.
All right, the first question. Bobby Rush moved from a symbol of a Black Panther to that of a smiling jackass. Just a symbol alone. In any war, in a capitalist country or a socialist country, if you're a soldier in the army and you desert, you are shot. It's just because we are disorganized and we have so many deserters who brag about it. That's right, I even hear them come and say, in the 60s I was doing this, what you doing now? Nothing, shoot him, he's a deserter. Shoot him, he's a deserter. So I know they're deserters, I know that we're just not organized and we can't shoot them, you know, but I got a list. I got a list. I got an international list, you understand? And I know all the traitors of people. I can't kill them until the people organize and give the legitimacy. But as Africa is my mother, as soon as we organize, I want to be the chief executioner. They're betrayers. They're all betrayers of the people who come to think that advancing themselves means advancing the people. It's as simple as that. I mean, certainly Bobby Rush must know the blood of Fred Hampton is on him. And it's the Democratic Party that killed Fred Hampton.
That's right.
Everybody knows that. So, anyway, for us, as we said, we don't belong to these parties. We belong only to the people, and the people cannot be free inside of these parties. And even if they're inside of these parties, they should be fighting these parties. That's what really surprises me. He gets up and then even so, you know, no, I know Bobby Rush a long time ago. But Fred Hampton was president of the youth wing of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. What's that area? Is it Maywood? It's Maywood, yes. Hey, when he invited me to speak, when I was honorary chairperson of the Black Panther Party. And 1 week later, he was in the Black Panther Party. We saw them all come above Rush, and we used to tell them over and over again, you know, if you're going to be revolutionary, we don't want race horses, we want war horses. There's a difference between a racehorse and a war horse. But I guess Bobby Rush must be a racehorse and think he's going to run a short race. But anyway, we'll see what good he's done for the people. But for us, a Black Panther going to a smiling jackass is not a step forward for us. Your second question. You know, the question you raise is a very important question. But I think it really has to do more with each of us properly understanding our own consciousness. I know I am an African. I know this. No white man can confuse me into make me think I'm not an African, and certainly no African can confuse me into let me think I'm not an African. I know I'm African. Matter of fact, when I get on the continent of Africa and I find a bourgeois African who's trying to tell me that I don't belong in Africa, I quickly tell him, you know, the white man told me that some of us sold each other, and I told the white man he was lying, but I think I found out that he was telling the truth. I want to give you a clear history. I hold upon me today one of the highest political honors I've ever held in my life. I am the advisor, the political advisor for the Democratic Party of Guinea. Let me tell you a little bit about the Democratic Party of Guinea. The Democratic Party of Guinea is that party which was in power in Guinea during the time of President Kwame Ture. If you don't know much about Kwame Ture, I'll tell you this. He never compromised Africa's dignity. Never. He said that we'd rather be poor and free, and that's exactly what he meant. If you go to Conakry today, it's one of the poorest countries in Africa. But let me tell you, it has the richest mineral deposits in Africa. The diamonds in Guinea are better, of a higher quality than those in Tanzania, South Africa. We have gold in Guinea, yet we never touched it. We said as a party, first we must organize our people so that we all know this wealth belongs to all of us, not some of us, before we touch it. Because if not, we're going to go to war with our people. Because some will take, others will have not, and there'll be war. When Secretary died in 1984, the military, seizing advantage of the confidence which the people had in them, seized power. Since 1984, they've been in power. In 1984, we have a people's militia, but because of betrayal by the leadership and other complicated issues, it was not possible to go to immediate armed struggle. Thus our party, the Democratic Party of Guinea, which was abolished by the military, had to work underground, politically. We wore them down. We wore them down. I mean, from behind, we sent them demonstrations of students. We sent them demonstrations of workers. We sent them demonstrations of the unemployed, which they created, because as a socialist state, we had no unemployment. We sent them women. We sent them every segment of the society, wearing them down. They arrested us. They tortured us. They put us in jail. We got out. We went right back to fighting. And we wore them down till in 1991, though illegal, our party, the Democratic Party of Guinea, PDG in French, started meeting illegally, but publicly, on private property. We were sure now that they were weak enough and could not stop us. We are their greatest enemy. They stole power from us and betrayed Africa before our very eyes. Thus, for them, we are certainly their biggest enemy, but they are weak now and we're getting stronger. From 1991 until 1992, the military regime could not touch us, and obviously we grew rapidly because the Democratic Party of Guinea, while fighting for socialism, is unlike other parties outside of Africa. We are a mass party, not a vanguard party. Because we've been organized all over the country. We immediately started to restructure our party. In April of 1992, last year, the military regime, recognizing that it could do nothing about our party, unbanned the very party which they banned. You can see here the political weakness. In order to cause confusion, they created some 42 parties in Guinea. And they set December 27th as the date for elections. They thought they would win. I knew the party would take power in Guinea. For me, there never was the slightest question. I've been in Guinea through all these years of the military regime. I spent all my time there working for this party. By December of last year, the military regime recognized that they would not win. So since they too are in the hands of the French, following the same French stupid tactic that they have in Algeria, they postponed the election. I know what Algeria is going to do, and I promise you the PDG will take power in Guinea. I am the political advisor of that party. I was not born in Africa. If you know the history of Pan-Africanism, you would see that that which you ask is only a question for those who don't believe they're Africans. No one can deny that Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, was a giant Pan-Africanist. No one can deny this. And very few people know that his advisor on African affairs was none other than George Padmore. George Padmore was not born in Africa. He was born outside of Africa. Yet it was George Padmore who was Kwame Nkrumah's advisor on African affairs. It was George Padmore who planned all of the meetings for Africa, the first OU meeting, the All African People's Organization, etc., etc. It was George Padmore. So if we look at our history, we will see that this question is really a question either from bourgeois Africans or from others. When I go to African villages, and this is my job, when I go there, I'll take you all the way back to one of my first trips to Africa in Tanzania. I'll never forget it. I had a meeting there with the youth wing and then the TANU party, now the CCM, and they invited me to a party. We did interviews. And then we had this mass rally, you know, it's 1967. I mean, you know, it's hot then, you know, and while after I was speaking there, an old man, there was a question asked, an old man got up. He said, well, he said, I come from such and such a village. I forgot the village. He said, but I had to come to this meeting. He said, I came all the way from my village. He said, because, he said, you see, I'm not a young man. He said, because I heard this man Carmichael. And I heard this man Carmichael speaking so much for Africa that I wanted to know which white man can speak this much for Africa. Understand? He said, so now that he comes, he sees that this Carmichael is an African he doesn't understand. You know, so one of the people there, of course, he was speaking Swahili. Somebody explained to him that, well, you know, this is one of our brothers who was taken away in the slave trade, etc., etc. He said, okay, but is he back here now? I said, yes, I'm back here now. He said, well, is he going back to America? So I said, well, he said, well, he has no need to go back to America. He's here now. Every village I go to in Africa, the people want to know why you want to go back to America if you're already in Africa. Everywhere. So those who don't want you to come are the bourgeois ones, the Mobutus. But this is one struggle. The same enemy in Africa is our same enemy in America. Mobutu is the many Africans all over the world who are conscious, just like Lumumba is our patriot everywhere.
Good evening. My name is Alicia McKay. I'm a student here at UDC. I'd like to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed your introspective speech. It was quite enlightening. I was wondering if you could expound on or recap, if you will, or recap some of the strategies that you would suggest for those who are interested in or who also share your vision of revolution to carry that out while being citizens and inhabitants of America.
For us, the simple answer would be to join an organization which is in line with your philosophy. Mm-hmm. The Nation of Islam have organizers here. They also have a branch in Africa, in Ghana. The All African People's Revolutionary Party has chapters all over the world. They have a chapter right here in Washington, D.C. So we would suggest that, of course, we'd like you to join ours, but if not ours, any organization. The only way you can properly make your contribution to your people is in an organization. So for us, the solution is very simple. Any organization. We say if you're not ours, be in the NAACP. If not that one, Urban League, Nation of Islam, anyone. If not, make your own. But only through organization we'll be able to make our benefits. So then if you're a revolutionary, you get in revolutionary organizations. If you're a reformist, you get in reformist organizations. But we say bad organization is better than no organization at all.
Exactly. Thank you.
Good evening, Kwame. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, my sister.
All right. 2 questions. First of all, as you know, there are a lot of books and magazine articles out today on the Black Power movement and the Black Panther Party in particular. Could you please explain, that's my first question, could you please explain the greatest weakness and the greatest strength of the Black Panther Party? My second question is, every African around the world is against racism, but not every African around the world is necessarily against sexism and capitalism. So could you please explain the interrelatedness of capitalism, racism, and sexism? And thank you very much.
Your first question. You know, unfortunately, our people do not read their own history, and what they get is usually from television. I'm reminded of a few days ago a young brother who told me that he just memorized Dr. King's greatest speech. Well, of course, this is news to me because many people who I know who know Dr. King are really questioning which is his greatest speech. That we question. Well, of course, the young boy told me that was I Had a Dream speech. I asked him to keep quiet. Because anybody who knows King knows I Had a Dream speech is the most mediocre speech that King has ever made. But nobody knows any other speech because that's the only one given to them by the television, etc., etc. I suggested to him that he'd go look at King's speech, Why I Opposed the War in Vietnam. It's a little different here. So most people know very little about the Black Panther Party. They just know television. But if one would look at the beginnings of the Black Panther Party, one would see the Black Panther Party was never revolutionary. It was reform. If you will look at Oakland, you will see that Huey Newton and Bobby Seale picked up a gun to defend bourgeois law, not to go against bourgeois law. They picked up a gun to make the police obey the laws that the police were supposed to obey. And the laws in California were certain bourgeois laws. But they picked up the gun in the first place to support the system, not to go against the system. It's a little thing, but unless you're properly analyzing it, you make a great deal of errors. The positive thing about the Black Panther Party was that it demonstrated to everyone that the lumpen proletariat in this country was prepared to struggle, even if spontaneously. Of course, the error it made was that it did not understand that the lumpen proletariat itself must go through a transformation. Malcolm X was a prisoner. When he went to prison, he was a pimp. He was a robber, a hustler. But when he walked out of prison, he didn't walk out as a hustler, a pimp, or a robber. He walked out as a revolutionary. He had transformed himself through the Nation of Islam. The only way the lumpen proletariat can fight in a revolutionary movement is when they transform themselves. And the Black Panther Party did not concern itself with giving political education to its members. The Nation of Islam gives a lot of education to its members. But the Black Panther Party did not. Thus, its biggest weakness was that it did not understand its revolutionary task. It did not seek to politically transform the lumpen proletariat. The positive point was that it showed that even the lumpen proletariat is ready to get down against the enemy. Your second question. I think the problem is that many people in America think that racism is an attitude. And this is encouraged by the capitalist system. So they think that what people think is what makes them a racist. Racism is not an attitude. We give the example all the time. If a white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If he's got the power to lynch me, that's my problem. As racism is not a question of attitude, it's a question of power. Racism gets its power from capitalism. Thus, if you're anti-racist, whether you know it or not, you must be anti-capitalist. The power for racism, the power for sexism comes from capitalism, not an attitude. If I want to kill every white man today, you understand, and I'm really a down-hard racist, I want to kill them just because of the color of their skin, I can't do that. I have no power to do it. Matter of fact, all I have is a problem because I see them and want to kill them, I'll go crazy. If I have the power to kill them, it's their problem. That's real serious. So you cannot be a racist without power. You cannot be a sexist without power. Even men who beat their wives get this power from the society which allows it, condones it, encourages it. So it's only when you have power that you can be racist or sexist. Therefore, one cannot be against racism, one cannot be against sexism, unless one is against capitalism. And if one is not against capitalism, even though one thinks one is against racism, one is not against it at all. One just wants a piece of the racist pie.
Leaving from, it's good to see you again. What I want you to address is dealing with the Liberian Civil War, because I haven't found much information on that. And I'd like you to talk about this brother by the name of Charles Taylor.
All right. But let me tell you before you go now that America knows Liberia better than any other colonizing power knows their colonies in Africa.
Right.
Portugal stayed in Africa for 500 years. Yet Portugal will never know Angola the way America knows Liberia. Because you must understand all the problems in Liberia must be placed at the feet of America. They were around telling everybody in the world that Liberia was the most democratic country in the world, la 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 la, all this la la la. They were even proud of what they created. So this is what America creates in Africa. So definitely we don't need them to go to Somalia. It's already happened there. Why do they want to go there? America understands that in order to properly exploit Africa, she must be destabilized. They actually think that we're going to go back into isolation and not come out as a unified continent. Thus, their attempt here is to divide Africa, to destabilize Africa. For us to talk properly about Charles Taylor, of course, a very long history. A history of the role of the American Liberia in Africa. A history of the role of America in building up this infrastructure. A history in the role of the oppression of those Africans born in Liberia. All of these things must be done in a short period of time. One thing is clear. When Doe took power, it was clear that he was headed for struggles with the people, even though he himself was using revolutionary slogans. As he built up more and more, it was clear. But you must know something about Doe. Doe had more military hardware in Africa than any other state in West Africa, and all of it was given to him by the United States of America. They gave him a military machine that was better than the one Nigeria had and the one that Rawlings had in Ghana. He had sophisticated weapons. And the money they gave him alone above the table was more than they gave to just about any other regime in Africa. And you know in American politics, the money above the table is nothing compared to what's under the table. Top of the table is only the iceberg. If my memory serves me correctly, I think they gave him something like $500 million above the table just in military aid alone. Of course, when Doe was falling in the struggles that people were raising, it was clear that America had invested a lot of money in him. So they were trying to keep him in power. Sekou Touré says imperialism will never know Africa because they cannot know the people. America didn't know the hatred that the people had for Doe. They underestimated completely the fighting capacity and will of the people in Liberia. I myself might have erred here, because if you knew anything about Liberia before the war, those Africans in Liberia, brother, they didn't think about nothing except America. That's just a fact. I myself was amazed to see that they would sustain a war by Taylor against Doe for as long as they did. But when they did that, I recognized the level of the height of the consciousness of the African Revolution. Because if they can do that in Liberia, I know what they're going to do elsewhere. So this war which they struggled to get rid of Doe was the real war. Of course, American imperialism came to play its role here. They seem to have some problems with Taylor. I don't know what the problems are exactly, because Taylor is not a flaming socialist, that's for sure. But they were insistent upon every way of him not taking that war. He, of course, made many errors. That's to be understood. As you know, he's not like me, a political activist all his life. You know, he was just a government functionary who decided that he had to pick up guns to fight for the country. So he makes a lot of political errors. Amos Sawyer in Monrovia is divided and supported, of course, by the Ecomox troops, the troops of varying countries, and that's not a very steady base because these countries change rapidly. Rawlings has just become civilian, Babangida will soon go, in Guinea-Conte can last through the year. We don't know what Sierra Leone looks like with the problems they're having there. But one thing is clear, Africa that is shedding blood now from Liberia to Somalia is shedding blood for a unified socialist Africa. Everyone thinks differently, but those of us in the struggle see it clearly. We're not going back to the villages. We are going to unified socialist Africa. And you can see this from the youth of Africa. The youth of Africa talk of nothing except Pan-Africans.
Thank you very much.
Greetings, Brother Kwame. Much respect for all your years of struggle.
Thank you for your drumming.
All right.
You know that was the first thing they took away from us?
Yeah. Weekend is great. It's clear, as you've stated, that we must be organized and garner our resources and energies toward our liberation through the liberation of Africa and all African people. In a similar spirit with which Marcus Garvey organized. Marcus Garvey attempted to use some of the mechanisms of the capitalist system, like selling stocks to African people in the Black Star Line, etc. How do you see us making the transition of being confronted with the capitalist system and having to work within its confines, at least initially, to making that transition to gaining power through socialism?
Okay, well, I'm not sure that if you look at the Black Star Line, there was no capitalist philosophy here. The Black Star Line was a people's project. The profits from that were not in any way for Marcus Garvey. So I'm not sure that the example is clear, but I understand the question that you're asking. I think that the best way to answer the question is to give you an example of slavery. If this was 1853, and we were a couple of blocks away from here in Virginia, all of us would have to pick cotton. That's just a fact, whether we wanted to or not. Even if you and I were going to run away tonight, or tomorrow night, tomorrow we have to pick cotton until the night. So when the enemy forces you to do something, you're forced to do it. The difference is whether you accept it or not. Thus, the difference between us as slaves in 1853 would be those who accept being slaves, think they're made to be slaves, therefore must bow down to the masters, and those of us who know we're not to be slaves, it's just that that Spig got more power than we do at this time. That's all. In that situation, then, one is forced to give one labor to the enemy. Here, you must give as least as possible of your labor to the enemy. You must break your hoe. You must injure yourself. You must get sick, you understand, just so you pick as less cotton as possible, do as less work as possible. Yes, that's what you must do. So in that way, the old folk used to say it, well, you give your labor to the master, but you give your soul to the people. So we are in a capitalist system, and the only way you can live in a capitalist system is by selling your labor. That's a fact. Under slavery, you have to give it. We smashed that. We were chattel slaves. Now we're slaves of the wage. We have to smash that. But until we smash it, we are slaves of the wage. Consequently, we are forced to sell our labor for a wage. The question is whether or not you sell your labor and your soul to the capitalist pigs, or while selling your labor, you resist as much as possible, do as little as possible, or for example, as people in our party, rip off as much from them as you can for the party. But you must not sell your soul to capitalism. So while we're in the system, we're not part of it. We're forced to be in it because of power. We must understand that while inside of it, we must resist it as we move over to a socialist system.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Brother Kwame, and I want to know what you think about Noah plant.
About?
Noah plant. Noah plant.
Help me with that, I'm sorry.
Force birth control.
Oh.
12-year-olds. Define it, brother.
Explain it.
It's an injected form of birth control given to women on welfare so that it will control the population of our people.
Oh, I'm sorry I didn't hear this one. You know, they got so many tricks. But it ain't gonna work. I don't know what they got, but it ain't gonna work. I don't know what they got, but I tell you, knowing my people, it ain't gonna work. So we're against it. Anything the enemy does, you gotta be against it. And control birth for what? Because they're not producing? That's their problem, not ours. They ought to see Richard Pryor. He tell them what to do. So the only problem is that they're not producing, and they're afraid that that's what the whole fight is. All this problem of AIDS, all this problem of famine, they're all made by capitalism to reduce the population. That's what it's all about. And to reduce it on a mass scale. So the famine, the droughts, all of these things are planned scientifically. And you must not think they're haphazard. Certainly anyone who's not suspicious of AIDS being manufactured as a germ warfare living in America is a backward and stupid American. You're just asleep. This country started on germ warfare. They used to inject smallpox into blankets for the indigenous people. That's where they started. And they've been doing this for years. They got to be experts at it. And anybody who don't think they're experts at germ warfare really is stupid. So there's no question that all of these things they will do, but nothing is going to work, Jack. Victory is ours. All we got to do is stand up, be conscious, and take it.
I'd like to say peace unto you, Brother Kwame. You are a true inspiration to my life. However, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions as far as today, the things that we as Africans are facing. What do you think that dismantled the movement as far as the 60s and before then? As far as now, do you think it's the genocide, the new drugs, or also do you think that we as African Americans have become very predictable? You know, as far as they can put things on the market, they can sell these things to us, and we take it and we buy it just like, you know, it's okay. I want to know as far as what can we do to stop, especially our youth, to following in those same footsteps.
Okay. Let us deal with your first question. You know, I meet young people who all the time tell me that they wish they were alive in the 60s with us. Well, of course, this is backward because nobody looks backward, they always look forward. But they say the reason why they'd like to be there is because we had so much unity at this time. And Krumah says unity presupposes organization. He's correct. Unity is not a feeling. It has to be organized, direct energies towards preconceived goals. In the 1960s, we were not organized, we were mobilized. And when a heightened period of mobilization comes, and organizations are not strong, they have only two choices they can make. One, they withdraw their organization from the mass movement and build it, or they throw their organizations into the mass movements knowing the organizations will be destroyed, but at least they will make some movement in the mass movement. If you will look at the movement in the 60s, you will see this is exactly what happened. The Nation of Islam did not take part in this confrontation. It withdrew, built its organization. SNCC threw its people into the organization, and that would be part of it, CORE, SCLC, because they were weak organizations. We have, those of us who are conscious, have hoped that we've overcome this problem, especially us in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. We have cadre in our party who have years of experience. I imagine in America alone, the average age of our cadre, that's people in our party who've been in the party cadre, is at least 10 to 11 years. That's just average. So we have people who are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years inside of our party. And we have this all over the world, so we have a strong base now that when the rising tide comes of a mass movement, we'll be able to direct it and bring them in and build the organization.
I need to also know, do you favor arms for organization?
Oh, of course. Yes. Your second question. The youth of our country have made great advances for us as a people. Anyone in this room who is around my age, I'm 51, would know that all of us as youth heard the words, "Don't do that. White people don't like that. Shh, that's not nice. It looks bad for the race." Our youth have never heard that at all. They've never heard anybody tell them, "Don't do this, white people don't like that." You know, no! So these youth have no fear of authority at all, and this is necessary for revolutionary struggle. What the youth lack is the organization that we should have to give them proper direction. That's all they lack. But if you spend time with them, you see how easy they are to fold. Well, in 1991, we spent time, as the last time, in 3 attempts to bring the Bloods and the Crips together. You know, I've been doing this since Chicago with the Blackstone Rangers and the Disciples, I believe they were called. Yeah, the Disciples, yeah. The 1960s. So this work we've been doing all our time. The Black Panther Party itself came out from a lot of gangs. So even as honorary Prime Minister, I was all in the middle of gangs trying to bring peace. And I know them. Look here, they're like putty in the hands of somebody who's working for the people. You walk in that room, Jack, and they be bad, Jack. But when they see you walking, they know you fight for the people, Jack. They just fall to pieces like kids. You understand? Their heroes are those who fight for the people. But unfortunately, as we're not organized, we cannot give them direction. You must understand something about your genocidal statement, because people make it all the time, but don't weigh it. I know at war with the enemy. I know this. And I know when you fight a war, soldiers must be killed. That's understood. You can't have no war without soldiers being killed. I'm a revolutionary. Blood never upsets me. I understand that there's no advancement made in humanity up till now without the shedding of blood. So blood doesn't upset me. And certainly so for these Africans, we shed blood just for reform. So when I see blood, I don't get upset. I just want to know, how is the blood being used to advance the struggle? That's all. That's the only thing that concerns me. So I'm a general in war. Now I know the enemy fights us on every front. So when I come to Washington, D.C., they tell me, "Oh, how's things going this year?" "Oh, Brother Kwame, since you came last year, it's gotten a little bit worse. We're losing some more soldiers already here." in D.C. now, the dropout rate of high school students is 20,000 a year. I say, okay, that's 20,000 soldiers lost on the education front. Our brother, in health is worse now. More babies die than before. Now we got 10,000 a year. That's 10,000 lost on the health front. Brother Kwame, drugs are terrible now. We got a good 30,000 out of drugs. That's 30,000 lost on the drug front. And the jails are filled now, you understand? Well, that's another couple of 100,000 up as prisoners of war, you understand? And the drugs got a whole lot. That's another 50,000 lost in drugs, you understand? So it's just a scientific look. You're fighting an enemy, and the enemy is fighting you on every front, you understand? And you are disorganized, you understand? The thing that pains me the most about our revolution is that I have to look and see us leave the wounded on the battlefield to be picked by the vultures. I see it all the time. I've been seeing it since I was in the 60s. I see it to today. I see brothers and sisters who come to give their life for the people's struggle, and they get wounded, some even mentally, others in other things, and there's nothing we can do for them at all, except leave them right there on the battlefield for the vultures to pick them. We can't even give them a stick to knock away the vultures. This is the weakness of our struggle. We must understand it. But the enemy himself will show you how you are making progress. The reason they pump drugs into the community is to dull the consciousness of the community. Therefore, the more drugs they pump in, the higher is the consciousness of your community, just by looking at the enemy. So since we say that we're not upset by losing soldiers, in this battle we got to lose a lot of soldiers, especially in the beginning of a war. When you're disorganized, you lose a lot. As you get more organized, you lose less. But those that you lose are lessons for you on how not to lose less. So we must draw lessons from these, because we're going to lose less. Because no matter what they do to us, we're going to win this war. Right. And all you got to do is look at history. The Chinese whooped them on the Opium War. I mean, whooped them in the 1830s. And you know what opium is? Opium and crack, there's no comparison here at all. If you look at the beginning of the war in Algeria, in North Africa for independence, they pumped drugs all over Algeria. The Algerians took the drugs out and whooped them. So I know we're going to take the drugs out of the community and whoop them. All it's necessary, only thing holding us up is the conscious element properly beginning to organize our community. Because once we're properly organized, no drugs will come into the community without our knowledge. The drugs come into the community today through the police. The police bring the drugs into the community. And since we have no control over the police, we have no control over the drugs being brought into the community. Because those kids dying, if I took them to a laboratory where drugs are being made, they wouldn't even know where they are. All they know is the drugs are brought to them, they sell it to make money, and they die in shootouts. And it's organized by the police. So the problem is not the youth. The problem is the lack of control that we have over our youth.